drains our fence. Still on their property. They essentially,
Ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Dan, you okay?
yeah. So,
Good evening. This is the August 21st, 2019 Town of Boston Planning Board meeting. Let's vote on the board and tape and yourself.
Carolyn Stevens, board member.
King Watson, chair.
Garrett Duffin, board member.
Jim Bassine, board member.
Nancy Arcia, consulting engineer to the planning board.
Sandy Nellie, secretary to the planning board.
David Stallman, town planning consultant.
Kathy Zalantis, planning board attorney.
Thank you. First item is Rinaldi subdivision, 39 Stormy Town Road, proposed 10-lot subdivision, continuing the public hearing. Please here, Thomas Madden, how are you?
pretty good.
Good evening, J.B. Hernandez, representing the project. Is that? No.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. We're just reviewing some of the comments from the last time that we have for our submittal, what we have from the consultants, and it seems like we're down to a couple items to work on the site distance. We showed some site distance. We're going to revise that to show accordingly to what we're saying. The tree replacement, I think we're good with that. Cul-de-sac, we can show revised plans. I think that wall complies, that we can build a wall within the property. And for street trees, that we are proposing landscaping here. So I don't know if that's one that we have to propose the larger size trees, or if that's one of the items that can be waived by the board.
Well, the subdivision regulations require one street tree for every, I forget, 40 or 50 feet, something like that, on both sides of the street. So they need to be spaced out.
Okay.
It looks like
so instead of
there's some
right.
frontage that doesn't have any street trees.
Okay, so we can spread those,
Adjust them.
adjust them so
Yeah, sure.
they're 40, 50 feet apart.
Yeah, whatever the spec is,
Yeah, okay. That's
Yeah, I agree with JB. The list is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. There are just a few things that need to be done now.
Any comments on the board at this time? Dan, do you have anything to add to this?
No, I get that this phase, we're handling this as a preliminary subdivision, so my previous memo addressed some more detailed comments that would be part of the final approval. So I'm basically okay at this point.
Just so we know, are there any members of the public wish to speak on this matter? Okay, seeing none. Okay, what's our next step on this?
Well, you could, I think, at this point, close the public hearing and have me draft a resolution of preliminary subdivision plat approval. There would be a resolution of final when everything has been fine-tuned a bit more, and whatever outstanding items there are could go in the resolution of preliminary approval. Since this is a major subdivision based upon the number of lots and other reasons, it's a two-phase process: preliminary plat approval and then final plat approval when everything is really fine-tuned.
Okay, you feel like the applicant is close enough to your
For
concerns?
preliminary approval, yes.
Board members, any feel?
They're all conforming lots, so I think moving ahead would be appropriate.
All right, so,
So you would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
do we need to do that before you actually have?
You can leave it up until the next meeting. You can just have me prepare a draft resolution of preliminary plat approval.
Very good. Why don't we have you draft the preliminary, the resolution for us? We'll close it at the next meeting if it's called.
so both can be done the next meeting. Then, if there's a draft, you can.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fine.
All right. We're good. Thank you.
I don't know if anyone's here for that.
Oh, we'll have to set it public hearing date, right?
Two things. You should ask if anybody's here who wants to talk about this
I
tonight.
did already.
He did.
Oh.
You did. Where was I?
I think you were right there.
I think my brain left the room. Yeah, a date certain.
All right, when's the next date on this? September 4th?
September 4th.
I can't be here September 4th, unfortunately.
We can't be here on September 4th. September 18th then, it'll be okay?
Okay, September 18th.
That'll give you time to finish up everything fully.
Okay.
Very good. All right, so date certain, September 18th. We'll look forward to seeing everything finished by then.
Thank you.
Well, the first part anyway. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the MGM subdivision, 5 Hawks Avenue, proposed 2-lot subdivision. Applicant here? Yes. Have you had a chance to look at the comments from the staff?
Yes, I've reviewed the comments from Mr. Stolman and Mr. Ciarcia. There's a couple of questions from Mr. Stolman about his comments and then one from Mr. Ciarcia. Regarding comment number 2 about the, it's actually 2 and 5. So we're going to comply with the code referenced in 2, we're going to...
2 and 5?
Comment number 2, and then I'm going to ask a follow-up question about number 5 to kind of relate the two.
Okay. 2 and 5?
Yes,
You
not,
said 2
not,
and 5?
no.
Sorry.
So, to comply with this section of the code reference in 2, we're going to have to provide trees. And we were wondering if, in lieu of a fence, I know that was a suggestion, those trees could serve as the screening that fence would provide along that southern property line. I'm not sure how the board feels about that.
It's up to the board. So you would plant a solid row or staggered row of conifers to have a visual barrier instead of the fence?
Correct, yes.
I think as long as you're reaching, my view would be as long as you're reaching the 50% requirement.
Right, we would do that there and most likely have to do it in other locations on the site. But yes, that would serve as the screening referenced in 5.
It's okay with me.
I don't have any objections. Okay.
Okay. The other item is comment number 6 regarding the Lot 1 driveway. At the last meeting, we had expressed how we intended to stagger that driveway further north of the lot across the street. Refer now to the area map, which shows that. So we had intended to have it further north, so that as that property owner requested, that they weren't directly across the street from each other. While we were doing sort of this design, we noticed that that was possible because there's an existing utility pole and an existing manhole pretty much right on top of each other, right where that would occur. So that wasn't really an option. The other item that we kind of came across was, because this will be reviewed by the DOT, they typically prefer it if driveways are directly across from each other, not staggered as we had done. So on this plan, we've sort of left it like this.
Left it slightly staggered.
Well, it's not directly across, but it's not nearly as staggered as as the previous plan had shown.
Can you make it directly across?
I could take a look at that. I think we may be able to do that, yes.
And if you could show this on the larger scale drawing with as much accuracy as you possibly can?
Yes, I believe that this property was actually picked up by, at least their entrance was picked up by a survey. I'll double check what we have to make sure that that's the case.
If they're slightly staggered, it really creates a problem for 2 cars trying to turn left at the same time conceivably and can cause accidents. It's much better, either they're far apart, relatively far apart, or directly opposite each other.
So they can see each other.
Yes.
Makes sense.
Okay. Well, at least you looked into the possibilities. All right. Any other items?
No, the only other item would be on Mr. Cerci's comment about the plat. If he would prefer we wait until we sort of hash out some of the other items, or see if that was it from us.
Any comments from the board this time?
I'd like to ask about the 36-inch high-density polyethylene pipe you showed.
The one,
Brought to light by Dan's memo.
Number 4.
this one here?
Yes.
Yes.
So what's the purpose of that, and how is it necessary?
Right, so right now, runoff can flow around the back this way. By virtue of us regrading this area, it would trap it here and send it onto the neighbor's property. It would kind of pond here and send it to the neighbor's property or onto this property. So this would provide a way for that runoff to, there's also a swale capturing it, so no excess runoff flows to the neighbor's property, and it also conveys it to the back in a stabilized manner rather than flowing onto the neighbor's property or ponding on the owner's property.
So I noticed that much of this is actually within the wetland, and much of the rest of it is, or I should say the swale is within the wetland, and much of this pipe is within the buffer. I would much rather that be open rather than enclosed for the benefit of aquatic and amphibian wildlife.
We can look at opening that up, but that would most likely result in having to remove more trees. So I'm not sure how you want to, if we want to balance one versus the other. The idea of having it be this swale is that it's a stabilized conveyance, so that there would be no erosion in the long term. That it would be able to convey runoff to the Dale Brook without starting to erode the bank and the site itself.
So there are two different issues. One is opening up the pipe. You're saying that would consume more trees. Can you show me how that would?
Well, so if you mean to open the pipe to rather than have a pipe there, had to have an open channel, correct?
Mhm.
Right. So we would have to excavate probably further this way, because I don't know if we'd be able to excavate this close to the property line. We'd have to probably push it further north, and that may impact some of these trees up on this sort of knoll here.
Is that because the excavation would need to be wider for a swale than for
Yeah.
a pipe?
Yep. Again, we can look at it. And
I could see that you could push it north a little bit and still have this line of trees remaining intact. I would much rather see that open, and
Okay.
it seems that you've got a lot of space up here, you could move it around.
We can look at that.
A
We
little
can definitely
further.
look at that as an option, and we can get back to you with what, as an alternative, what that would cause, how many extra trees would have to come out, or if any.
Okay, so the second issue is for the open swale part that you show, and then also for this proposed open swale area, what would be the material and how would it be constructed?
On the uphill side of the pipe, it would be grass. It really, we're concerned that once it enters the pipe, it becomes channelized, and so it's why we have riprap on the downhill side, and gravel, so that it dissipates the flow and the energy of the canal.
So that's riprap shown down there.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you could keep that open section, just natural grass,
We could
That'd be great.
definitely look at it,
Yeah.
yes.
okay, good, thank you.
So if you do end up opening it up, how would that affect the lower end of it?
It may give us, we'll have to check, the velocities of water once it gets down to that lower part. It may be that we can then just make that into a grass vegetated swale at the lower end as well.
So it'd be double benefit then.
Yeah.
Okay.
What would be the purpose of maintenance?
Maintenance for the uphill side would just be mowing it, but the idea for the downhill side is that this is, we buffer, this is going to be wetland, so you don't want to go in and start mowing it, you want to kind of let that revert back to its natural state. So really the maintenance of that would be to check it to make sure that the channel itself is clear, but you don't want to start mowing the area around it or anything like that.
Right, in fact, I would think that there should be a plan in place that would prohibit mowing
Right.
in that area.
We will be providing a wetland mitigation plan in the future, and that will sort of, and as well establishing a conservation easement on the site. So those areas will, have the requirements, maintenance requirements for the first however many years it takes to sort of establish that. Because right now, the majority of this area that's buffer and some of it is wetland is just lawn. So mitigation will convert this back into a natural wetland.
Okay, the conservation easement, I would think, should be in perpetuity, not on a 5-year schedule or anything like that, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Charlie, do you have a comment?
No.
Is there any members of the public who wish to speak on this matter? Seeing none. Anything, what do you want this next?
This was the first comprehensive submission, so I would think the thing to do tonight would be to ask the applicant to go and respond to my memo, respond to Dan's memo, and a resubmission, and we can see where we stand.
That's all right? Okay. Very good.
Thank you.
Do we need a specific date, or we just go?
No, it's not a public hearing, so whenever they're ready to come back, we'll make the submissions to Sandy, and we'll put them on the next agenda.
Great, okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the Indian Brook Water Treatment Plant, revising negative declaration.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm Julie Hurston with Hazen & Sawyer. I'm here with Ruby Wells from Hazen & Sawyer to talk about the negative declaration. We were for the new Indian Brook Water Treatment Plant. We were here about a year ago to get the town's approval on the project to sign off on the negative declaration. Over the last few months, I'd say, we learned from Department of Health that there was some inconsistencies with the timing of when changes were made to the EA and when the negative declaration was signed. So Ruby's going to kind of walk through some of the items that we needed to revise in the EA and go through this process again, which is kind of a formality at this point.
Hi, good evening. As Julie mentioned, there were some changes that had to be made in the EA following comments we received from DOH as part of the WIA grant application, which was submitted last year, as you might recall. That application was deemed incomplete in part because the SHPO process, the seeker process had some inconsistencies. Essentially, it was a timing issue. One of the issues and the items that was deemed incomplete was SHPO at this time last year, when we submitted the WIA application.
This is the State Historic Preservation Office.
Thank you. They had not issued their notice of no effect. They had informed us, they had informed us that the old Croton Aqueduct, which is near the proposed new treatment plant, could potentially be affected by the project, and therefore had asked us to look into implementing a construction protection plan. So we had had some further discussions with them over the course of the past year or so, over which time, and formal correspondence, over which time they determined that no construction protection plan was needed, as the project would not affect the aqueduct. So they issued their statement of no effect. And so we updated the EA to make sure we included this language that the project would have no effect. So that's the main change that was made to the environmental assessment. Another change which I think we had talked about last year, we had incorporated into the environmental review at that time, was that one of the agencies, DEC, New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, because of the fact that at that time it was thought that the project could affect the old Croton Aqueduct, they had opined, DEC had opined at the time that the project should be changed from an unlisted action to a type 1 action. We had done that for the previous EA, we had made that modification. However, at that time, we did not see a need to redistribute the environmental review because it was essentially not changing the type of action was not changing the content of the EA, so we saw no need to redistribute the EA at that time. However, since we have updated language in the environmental review to capture the statement of no effect from SHPO, and since that is something that the state had notified us that was important to update, we decided to close the SECRA process by redistributing the EA, and that was done at the end of last month, at the end of July. So the purpose of bringing this to your attention today is to answer any questions you have on these changes, and if and when you're satisfied, if we for purposes of the WIA application and closing the SECRA process, signing this revised negative declaration.
This is the changes in paragraph 10.
Yes, only in paragraph 10. So bottom of page 9, top of page 10. And you can either read those aloud or you can read them yourself.
Well, this has been published already, right?
Was that?
It's been published already.
You got this yesterday or the day before, or last week, I think.
Last week.
Yeah, last week.
Any comments? Do you have any comments?
No. I'm fine with this.
I have no comment on the content, but I'm a little surprised that you chose not to circulate that with a change from unlisted to type 1. I would have thought that
Well,
would...
the criteria for determining significance, neg deck,
between
pos
those
deck,
two are the same?
exactly the same.
Okay.
There's no difference in the criteria for determining significance.
Okay, so what do we need to do on this?
Just pass a resolution to adopt this amended neg deck.
Okay, can I have a
I'll
motion?
move that we accept the amended neg deck.
I'll second that.
Any other? Okay, so passes.
So I will provide a copy without the red line in, and I'll do the filing
Yes.
of the E and B, and I'll carbon copy you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, that takes care of the agendas. Do we have any minutes now? Okay.
No, I don't, sorry.
Okay, just to check on, I understand we received a letter from EAC concerning paving stones at Artis.
When did we
St.
receive?
Matterport to see.
I did receive something from Donna, but it wasn't from the EAC.
Yeah.
It wasn't, all right.
Well,
Well,
unless,
all right, it's not on the agenda, but is it something that we should be considering in the future?
I'm not familiar with this.
Okay, so we'll take a look at it for possibly for the next meeting.
Apparently what happened is that the stream and back was supposed to remain open and natural, and what Artis has done is put paving stones in the bottom
Of the stream?
and that affects, of course, plants and aquatic life being able to,
They just went ahead and did that without
yeah,
asking?
Apparently.
apparently. I mean,
I haven't seen it myself, but I saw the photographs of it, and,
I went and took a look.
oh, you did?
Yeah.
And you
The paving
agree with
stones are
that
there.
assessment? Yeah,
Yeah,
it looks,
I mean,
it's a
they're-
very high density of stones. It's not
Right.
as was described on the on the plan, which was to scatter a stone here and there on a natural mud bottom, to help stabilize it. It was basically, edge to edge. Even though I presume it was not mortared in place,
It's
it was
not.
still edge to edge,
Yeah.
leaving no possibility for vegetation. So,
So do we want Steve?
Well, Steve is actually,
Call
has
Mental
been,
Dead?
yeah, he's already been
Oh, okay, good.
called, and I think he has gone.
I mean, it sounds like an enforcement issue, because if it's not in compliance with
That's-
what this board approved,
That's-
they're in
that's-
violation of the site plan approval.
That's what it sounds like to me, is it's really, it's an enforcement issue at this point.
So they've got to go back to what was approved or come back to you and
Right.
ask for something different.
Yep.
May have been a mistake on their part. That they were
Oh.
doing
may have been a communication error with their contract, with their subcontractor.
But they'll have to correct.
They have to correct it for sure.
I think Steve is doing a report.
Oh, okay, all right, that's fine, as long as somebody's looking
Yeah,
into
at
it.
this point, they don't have CO, so.
Right.
Pretty
Got
much.
some leverage.
It did say,
Correct.
no.
Okay, any other items that we have to discuss? Any new items?
No?
No? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second?
Okay, one
Second.
Somebody say
Thank you.
You can give that one.
I'll give that one to Jim.